Hello everyone and welcome to part 2 in an introduction to plotting in MATLAB. In this part we will use some more advanced skills to customize our plots, and let's continue with that. So in the last video we ended with an example where I showed you how to edit your figure manually by clicking in it and changing the thickness of the line and things like this. So what we will talk about in this video is how to do this from the command prompt or from a script. So for example, here's me and Gunnar, my supervisor, and I will show him a figure and he will say something like, okay, this looks nice, but please change everything. Okay, well, maybe not change everything, but he will say, for example, change whatever, 1, 2, or 3 things. And then, if I need to redo it, I can start from scratch and do it the manual clicking way. Or if I'm in a scripting environment, I just need to change some variables and redo it. So this is why we want to do it in a script, because this saves you time when you have to repeatedly plot the same thing over and over again. And also, if you want to make a new figure, a similar figure, with the same settings, you just have to copy your original code and reuse it. So this is, for example, very useful if you're making the plot function for your cost function, for example, because you will probably look at that plot many times, so it's worth spending some time on it to get a good plot. So using a scripting environment allows you to make these sweeping changes, like changing the thickness of all lines, just by changing the value of one variable that controls the line thickness. And it reduces chances of error, of messing things up. And it's easier for your colleague to change your plot if you give them the code than it is for them to change the actual plot. Especially if what you give them is like a JPEG or a PNG file instead of the MATLAB figure. Okay, so how do we change, for example, the thickness? Well, there's something called a linewidth property in the plot, and in this example here we use a linewidth of 5, and this 5 here we can replace with a variable which we declare earlier in the script, and we can use that variable for all our plot commands. And we can also use other properties to change, for example, the thickness of our marker and things like this. So if you type help plot like we did earlier, you can see all the different properties you can change. Now let's talk about labels and titles. So here we have a graph over something, but you don't know what it's a graph over. All we know is there's an x-axis and there's a y-axis, so what is this? And many times you're presented with a graph and there's no label on the axis. And this is a big no-no. You need to label your axis. So you can use the x label to set a label for your x-axis. For example, now we know it's time on the x-axis in hours. So this probably represents a day, 24 hours. Okay, so what do we have on the y-axis then? Well, we can use the y label to set it so it's temperature in Celsius or centigrades. Okay, so we have some oscillating behavior over the day and it's in temperature, so it's probably the mean temperature of the day. So let's see if we have a title for this plot as well. Yes, we can use title like this, and you can see example 10 for the full code. So now we know what this is a plot of. It's temperature over a day. Perfect. So let's move on. So this works fine when we only had one thing in the graph, but when we have many things, we want to use something called the legends. This is a legend, the box in the plot that says which color is which thing. So you use legend like this, July and January, and you just plot it in this. You type it in the same order you plotted it, and you can look at example 11 for this. And you can also control where this box appears with the location input, and there's an example of this in the code. And yes, that was all for the second part, and I will see you in part 3 when we will talk about how to use handles to control your plots in even more subtle and ingenious ways. Thank you.